based around my experiences, I guess, through adversity. And although this is a very difficult time for everyone at the moment, and everyone has their own challenges going on. For me, I'm lucky in some respects that this is not the worst it's ever been for me, which is a positive spin on a negative situation, I guess. But as I said, I've been through sort of that cancer journey twice. And luckily, came out the other side, but I lost both my testicles. And the second time around, I went through a lot of chemotherapy. This was in 2010, which is my sort of annus horribilis, as the Queen would probably put it. But so that year started off that I was engaged to be married. 2 weeks before I got married, I was made redundant. We had this potential diagnosis hanging over us as well. So we were actually pregnant at the time as well, with my fiance, because we had to try and get pregnant quickly. And then we got married, and I came back and I was diagnosed again with cancer. So I then had 4 months of chemotherapy. And then at the end of that, I got the all clear, and we had a baby, which was like another enormous challenge, as you can imagine. But through that period, I'm a very competitive person, and competition was kind of one of the main ways I kind of dealt with it. And I focused very much on fighting, and fighting for me was my way of coping. But I wasn't very well educated about my mental health. I wasn't really supported as a young man through the clinical care system on an emotional level. Nobody was kind of holding my hand, telling me what to expect and what survival looked like and what survivorship meant. So I kind of winged it and took my default approach of fighting everything. I know all you guys love to do adventures and challenges and stuff, and I'm no different. And I love cycling, and I love motorbikes as well. I prefer motorbikes because you don't have to work so hard, but I do love cycling as well. And for me, my bike was kind of my exit, if you like, and part of the proof that I was okay again. Also, I have testosterone injections, so I would fail a drugs test if I was a competitive cyclist, but it does mean I'm basically Lance Armstrong, and my recovery is great. I've got loads of red blood cells, and it's really good for you, testosterone, when it comes to training. Just putting that out there. So cycling was the thing, and once I was given the all clear, I decided I was cycling. I wanted to get better. The first thing I did, which was just frankly stupid, I ran a 10K 4 weeks after I finished chemo. And that was nothing short of just sheer bloody mindedness. I was still fighting chemo, I was still fighting cancer, I was fighting everything. And just challenges. If a challenge was put in front of me, then that was something I had to take on because I was in that mindset. That led on to cycling, and taking on more and more cycling challenges. Because they were there to be done, and I was fighting everything and taking everything on head first. So I took on as much as I could. Started off with the Ride London 100, the very first one, which I did in about 3 hours and 25 minutes, something ridiculous, and was thoroughly broken after it. For 100 miles, it's pretty quick. And then for some reason, I signed up for a thing called the Ride 24, which is one of these, I guess, ultra endurance challenges. I was never going to run a marathon because I hate running, but I thought this could be my cycling marathon. So the challenge was to cycle 300 miles in 24 hours from Newcastle to London. Sounds relatively straightforward. What I didn't really anticipate was the commitment to training, and going on 160-mile training rides is on your own is just frankly bonkers, and not actually an awful lot of fun. Or getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and cycling around Richmond Park for 3 hours in the dark to get some nighttime training is again a place you kind of don't expect to find yourself sometimes. But I went for it and I committed to it, and I was doing it for charity as well, and again just trying to fight with myself and push myself. Because I thought that was the way I would cope with things best. Turns out that maybe wasn't the healthiest way. Anyway, did the event, went up to Newcastle, set off at, I think it was 12 o'clock on the bank holiday Saturday in August. And half an hour after we set off, I was in the second group, I think, it started raining. It then rained constantly for 20 hours. I think we literally sat underneath a cloud the whole way down. Uh, the one benefit, there was a slight tailwind. So 20 hours later, we're just outside London, um, and the sun came out for the last half hour for a ride through North London, and I mean it was misery all through the night. Rain, rain, rain. 4 changes of clothing, wet, cold, miserable. Not enjoying it at all. Well, you know, who would enjoy cycling 300 miles non-stop in the rain? It's just stupid. But we got to the end, and somehow did it in 21 and a half hours, which was an average speed over 30k an hour. I think 32k an hour average speed. For those cyclists, you'll know that's for 300 miles. That's a bit silly. Um, but it was an amazing achievement, and it was done. But for me, that wasn't really the end. What I then went on to do is just no more stupid 300-mile challenges, because I realized that, you know, once is probably enough for that. I know some people do loads of them, but I'm not quite sure why you would. It just hurts. But I decided that I just needed to keep challenging and fighting and dealing with everything. And part of that was I joined Movember as an ambassador, and I was committed to raising awareness around testicular cancer and men's health. But the byproduct of that was that I said yes to everything, because I thought, well, I wasn't thinking actually. I was just saying yes to stuff, trying to focus my energies into something positive, thinking I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't consciously thinking about the impact of some of those decisions that I was making. I was making subconscious thoughts and just trying to embrace life and take on the challenges, and not actually stop and reflect or think about the decisions I was making. And that became very destructive and quite damaging to my mental health, and to the people around me as well, because I was frankly pissing people off by not thinking about them when I was putting myself out there doing all these other things that I thought were very worthy and the right things to be doing. And the reason I kind of wanted to talk about that tonight was because I think for everyone now, actually, as we're starting to come through this global pandemic, we've all been locked away. We've all been, you know, trying to be resilient and trying to find a way to deal with what's being put out in front of us, you know, to deal with our life situations, our lack of contact with people, the inability to go out and do the things we love doing. A bit like having chemo, to be fair. You're sat at home all day feeling crap, and chemo is probably a little bit worse than lockdown, a shade worse. But I think we're all going to come out of this period now and be hungry to get out there and say yes to everything, to do all the things we can't do as much as we can. And I think if this period's hopefully taught us one thing, it's that opportunity to stop and reflect and think about the decisions we're making, think about the choices we're making, our actions, and be a little bit more mindful about those. And it would be all too easy for us all to get straight back into life as it was, you know, the old normal, as I think a lot of people will jump back into, rather than whatever this new normal is that they keep banging on about. But that can be dangerous. And I think having that time to stop and reflect and think about your actions, think about your decisions. It doesn't mean you can't say yes to everything, but it's that idea, for me especially, I cope with my mental health and not getting too sort of manic with things by having that time to think and push pause and think, you know, what are the repercussions of me saying yes to this? And are they positive? Are they negative? And actually, frankly, sometimes if they're negative, you can still say yes to them. But the fact you've taken the time to consider it and ideally speak to the person that it affects beforehand, you can mitigate the risk of them reacting sort of worse to that decision, or being more adversely affected by it. So uh, it's really important. And for me, that mindful thought process is how I maintain sort of a positive wellness, a good state of consciousness, and manage my mental health. And it's not perfect. Nobody's is. And just this week I've been struggling a bit. But I'm lucky now that I'm equipped to deal with that. And I have the knowledge on through the last 16 years of what my signals are when I'm starting to maybe become anxious or depressive, and I have the tools to do something about that. and stop it descending into a big issue, and sort of nip it in the bud, if you like. Because with mental health, the sooner you talk about it, the easier it becomes to deal with. And that's the biggest thing I've learned through all of this, actually. Beyond this conscious thought and not fighting everything, is to talk. And I talk a lot, and I talk like I've never talked before, and I'm a much better person for it, and I'm a much better person to be around, and I'm much healthier and happier as a result. So that was it in a nutshell, I guess. Nutshell, can I say that? I probably can't get away with that, having no nuts. Freudian slip. But yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to share with you guys tonight in a 10-minute quick blast. And hopefully you can all use a nugget of that here or there and take it on. And hopefully we all come out brilliantly from this lockdown period, and the world is just a much happier, healthier and kinder place.
Nice work, Ben.